Just a month ago, it looked like this whole story was already over. On February 28th, a U.S. surgical strike took out Iran's top 40 leaders. It seemed like a swift, decisive victory. Everyone figured the regime would just crumble, right? That the people would rise up and America would be declaring mission accomplished. But today, well, the story has taken a completely different and pretty shocking turn.
So that first strike on February 28th, it really did look like a knockout punch. But then, by the middle of March, something weird started to happen. Instead of collapsing, Iran was digging in, getting ready for the long haul. And now here we are at the end of March, and it feels like the tables have completely turned. Iran has just flat out rejected any peace talks, and get this, they're now the ones dictating the terms of the war. America's been pushed onto its back foot, forced to react.
And all of this leads us to a question that, honestly, would have sounded completely insane just a month ago. But it's a question we absolutely have to ask now. Is it actually possible that Iran is winning this war?
I mean, the contrast here is pretty jarring. The official story you'll hear in the U.S. is all about a clean tactical success. Operation Epic Fury was a victory. They say Iranian defenses were hit, nuclear sites were degraded, but what's actually happening on the ground? Well, it's like we're watching a totally different movie. Iran is expanding the war, they're mobilizing 1 million fighters, including kids as young as 12, and they're making direct threats to any nation that even thinks about supporting a U.S. ground invasion.
Okay, so here's something we really have to get our heads around. What does winning even look like for Iran? It's not about planting a flag in Washington, D.C. No way. For them, winning is about survival. It's about keeping their leadership and their military running. It's about holding on to control of the Strait of Hormuz so they can choke the global economy whenever they want. And most importantly, it's about making the cost of this war so unbelievably high for their enemies that they just have to give up and go home. And by that definition, Iran is very much still in the game. And that right there, that brings us to the real price of this stalemate. Because if Iran can just hang on, if this conflict drags out for another 6 months or even a year, the consequences for America's place in the world could be absolutely catastrophic.
And you can already see the economic fallout starting to ripple out. While everyone's focused on this fight, America's adversaries are just cashing in. Take Russia. Global oil prices are spiking because of all the chaos. And guess what? Their oil revenue literally doubled in a single month. It jumped from $12 billion to $24 billion. They're just sitting back, watching the money pour in.
But that's just the start. The long-term damage? Oh, it runs way, way deeper. This one conflict is creating a six-front crisis for the United States. It's threatening the petrodollar, it's making Gulf allies nervous and look for other partners, and it's kicking off a new nuclear arms race in the Middle East. At the same time, it's letting Iran's proxy networks pop back up stronger than ever. All this while America's totally distracted from whatever China's doing in the Pacific and facing a huge political backlash at home because of rising gas prices and casualties.
And look, let's be absolutely clear about the biggest threat here. We're talking about the petrodollar. This is the system that has been the bedrock of American financial power for 50 years. With oil prices going haywire and confidence in the U.S. taking a hit, countries like Saudi Arabia are already starting to talk to Russia and China about selling their oil in other currencies. This could be the beginning of the end for the system that has guaranteed America's economic dominance for half a century.
So you might be thinking, if this stalemate is so bad for America, why not just end it? Well, that brings us to the brutal reality of the battlefield itself. It's the question on everyone's mind, right? You've got the most powerful military in human history. Why can't they just roll in and finish this once and for all? Well, the answer is pretty terrifying.
It basically comes down to these 3 massive defensive walls. First up, the geography. It is an absolute nightmare for any attacker. We're not talking about the flat, open deserts of Iraq here. 50% of Iran is covered in huge mountain ranges. These mountains create natural funnels, predictable choke points, basically kill zones that would lead an invading army right into a trap. Second, logistics. To fight a war, you need huge, safe supply lines. But Iran has sworn to attack any neighboring country that hosts U.S. forces. And third, Iran's military, the IRGC, has spent 40 years getting ready for this exact scenario. They have a decentralized command, which means local commanders can just fight on their own, waging a brutal guerrilla war that would bleed an occupying army dry for years.
And this threat, it isn't just happening on some faraway battlefield, it's getting personal. After Iran took out 13 U.S. bases in the Gulf,
American soldiers had to pull back into civilian hotels in places like the UAE and Bahrain. And now, the IRGC has put out this chilling statement, promising to attack those hotels, basically daring the U.S. to fire back and hit the local population.
And look, this isn't just our speculation. This is a known fact inside the Pentagon. U.S. military planners know that Iran is not Iraq and it's not Afghanistan. The way they reportedly describe it is a mountainous hybrid hell, a scenario that could cause casualties on a scale America hasn't seen since Vietnam.
All of this, it's leading us to a really chilling historical parallel, and to this unwinnable choice that the U.S. is facing right now.
You've probably heard the phrase graveyard of empires, right? It's what people call Afghanistan, a place that broke the British Empire, the Soviet Union, and most recently, the United States itself. It's a powerful reminder that just having the biggest army doesn't mean you'll win against determined people fighting on their home turf.
And that's what leaves America stuck in this terrible, terrible choice. It's a classic strategic trap. Option A is to pull back, but if they do that, their credibility as the world's superpower is just gone, shattered. The idea of American invincibility is over. Option B, push forward. But that means risking a bloody, expensive, and probably unwinnable war that could drag on for years, draining resources and costing countless lives.
Which brings us to the one line from all of this that is honestly pretty haunting. The source material puts it bluntly. Iran could prove to be the graveyard of the American empire.
So yeah, this whole thing, it's not about a quick win anymore. It has turned into a brutal, cold calculation of cost versus benefit, and it leaves all of us with one final, sobering question to think about. When a nation's credibility is on the line,